When you consider the commencement of legislation in Australia, you might be under the impression that law can only operate after the legislation has been created and passed. That is, it could not possibly regulate the past. However, that's not actually the case. In Australia, we do have a presumption that law operates prospectively. That is, it only applies to the future. So, if a piece of legislation commences on the 1st of January, it'll only operate from that point onwards to facts and events. Legislation is presumed to operate prospectively for a variety of reasons, such as on the grounds of fairness, justice, and the rule of law, which has been outlined in the case of Maxwell and Murphy, 1957. This presumption comes from a common law presumption of legality, where the High Court of Australia, in an independent broad-based Anti-Corruption Commission 2016, emphasised that courts will not interpret legislation to take away common law rights. However, this presumption can be rebutted. That is, legislation can operate retrospectively to things that have occurred in the past, where Parliament expressly provides for this, or where a court concludes that a piece of legislation was impliedly intended to operate retrospectively. Where the retrospective operation of legislation seeks to take away common law rights, the High Court has held that this intention must be expressed with the irresistible clearness. That is, it must be expressly and clearly stated. An example of a piece of legislation that was expressly found to operate retrospectively was the Town and Country Planning Amendment Act 1984 from Victoria, which contained a provision that was expressly held to have come into effect almost 4 years prior. So when you're interpreting legislation, although you should presume that the legislation does not operate retrospectively, just remember that in some instances it can. Be sure to check the commencement provision of the legislation, which is generally found at the beginning of an act, and check for any case law that has implied a retrospective commencement date.